So over the past few chapters, we've really learned a lot about distributions, how to describe the distributions, how to collect summarizing quantities for the distributions, and how to approximate distributions as normal Gaussian distributions through the central limit theorem. Now it's time to really put everything together and start looking at errors in your protocols and how we can deal with error, as well as how we can design experiments so that we can prevent error. After that, we'll be able to move on to statistics and data analysis. So to start off this chapter, we're going to go through how to categorize various sources of error as random or systematic. That's very important moving forward. Then we're going to take a look at how to calculate uncertainty in measurement and how to apply error propagation rules for not uncorrelated variables. Then we can understand confidence intervals, how to find them, and then take a look at how to plot error bars in Python. So that's exactly the order we want to go through for the next few slides. So let's start off with sources of error. We want to first go through the importance of error analysis and then take a look at random versus systematic types of errors. So no matter what measurement is taken, there's always room for error no matter what. Evaluating this error and uncertainty is called error analysis. So every measurement that we take must also include an estimate of the level of confidence that we have associated with that value that we present. So this allows others to judge the quality of the experiment and allows us to discuss our results meaningfully so that we can make predictions about something else. So prior to experimental design, we usually have to understand how to report measurements and uncertainty in our measurements. So it's going to allow us to check if our results are going to coincide with a scientific hypothesis or refute it due to significance that doesn't meet our standards. So let's start with random versus systematic errors. A random error is a statistical fluctuation in either direction in measured data due to limitations in the precision of the measurement device. This basically means things that you can't control. The limitations of the instrument is something you can't control. It's done by the manufacturer. Physical variations in the system that you can't control. Environmental factors that are outside of your control, like temperature and so on and so forth. So what kind of fix is there? There essentially is not much of a fix, but you can reduce the contribution of error by averaging over large sample sizes. So that is the proposed fix to random error. You can minimize its effect by taking more measurements. Now, with a systematic error, we have what we call reproducible inaccuracies in the same direction that causes bias in your measured data. So that means either I'm taking the measurement and using too much of something, let's say, and causing a bias that increases the signal every time I take a measurement, and thus my whole distribution is shifted upwards. Number two, you can have an unclear definition of measurement. Maybe I'm asking you to measure something using a string, or I'm trying to ask you to measure the length of a string. If I ask you to measure the length of a string, it could be a loose string or it could be a very tight string. You don't know because the question and the instructions aren't very clear. So in that case, you might be over measuring what you've intended to measure. So in that case, there is really no fix in this situation. They're very difficult to detect and usually can't be fixed by increasing sample size. It means adjusting your protocols and your experimental design so that you can prevent systematic errors from taking place. Now, human errors are not considered errors at all. In various lab reports in undergrad, sometimes you're asked to report human error and so on and so forth, but in real life, these are things that we try to avoid at all costs. So human error is an error that is related to poor technique and poor understanding of the material. You can only design an experiment well if you understand the topics well, and you can only do experiments well if you understand how to use the equipment. So when you're presenting a result, it's not so good to say, here are my results. I made mistakes in measurements, and I also forgot to take these factors into account. It's probably not the greatest idea to present that as your conclusion, especially when you're trying to publish papers. So we don't consider human errors an error. They have to be fixed or corrected prior to moving forward. Okay, so let's take a look at measurements and error analysis, starting off with the uncertainty of measurements through accuracy and precision. So keep in mind, any measurement should be reported as your measurement is equal to your best estimate plus or minus some uncertainty. So if I measure something to be 2.0 centimeters, I have to do plus or minus maybe 0.5 centimeters or some portion to represent how uncertain I am or certain I am about that exact measurement. So we should know the difference between accuracy and precision as well. Accuracy has to do with how close your measurement is to the true value. It's commonly called the relative error. So we have the measured value, which is what I measure, and the expected value, which is what I should be getting, divided by what I should be getting. So that gives you a comparison between how far you are from where you should be. So that's accuracy. Now, precision has to do with how consistent your measurement is. So let's say you take a measurement 50 times and it's quite similar every single time. That means that it's very reproducible. It doesn't mean that if you take 50 measurements, it's going to get closer to the expected value. If you have a very precise measurement, it means that you're very confident in that measurement, but it may not be accurate. So keep that in mind. They are two separate things. Precision is commonly reported as fractional or relative uncertainty. So we call delta x the absolute uncertainty of a measurement x. Now, relative uncertainty is then given by the uncertainty in your measurement divided by your measured quantity. So it has nothing to do with the expected value. It has everything to do with what you're measuring and how certain or uncertain you are about it. So with error propagation, we have an equation for that over here. When we apply this equation, we can come up with various different equations to represent the overall uncertainty in a measurement, depending on whether you're using addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division for your function. So in terms of this, I won't go through this in detail because the workbook goes through it in a lot more detail than this, and you can read that if you want. So for absolute uncertainties, we use them if we're dealing with addition, subtraction, and logarithmic equations. We use relative uncertainties where we have sigma of the function divided by the function is equal to basically just a percentage for each one when we deal with multiplication, division, and exponential equations. So just keep that in mind when you're propagating error and everything's uncorrelated with each other, we can simply apply this. There are changes and there are modifications to how we apply this equation when we do have two variables that are correlated with each other. And those are things that we won't worry about in this course. What we do want to worry about is standard error. So the population's standard deviation sigma is usually going to show the distribution within a sample of what we're trying to measure. We call the standard deviation of a statistic the standard error of the estimator. So first, let's take a step back. We want to explain what an estimator is. If we have a sample distribution that we're looking at, then we're trying to use the information from the sample to estimate a parameter from the population. So we call this an estimator because any type of statistic taken from the sample is going to be used to estimate the population's parameter. So given that, I can have the standard deviation of the mean, standard deviation of the median, standard deviation of the mode. But most importantly, we rarely deal with median and mode, so we just deal with the average. So we're going to take a look at the standard deviation of the mean over here. So we come up with another term for it called the standard error. If we want to take a look at how precise our mean is, then we can calculate how far our mean deviates. So then we can say the standard error of the mean, which is SEX, SE or SEM. We call that the standard deviation divided by the square root of n, or essentially the square root of variance. So the standard error, there are various different ways of defining it. Just keep in mind, all it's telling you is how far the mean is going to, how precise your mean is, so that we can make assumptions about the population's mean as well. So visualizing error, this is the last section. We want to see how we can plot error bars in Python, how we can manipulate them, and also some other considerations to help with plotting error bars. So error bars are going to represent the variability of data and uncertainty in the reported measurement. Oftentimes, it's going to represent one standard deviation of uncertainty, one standard error, or a particular confidence interval. So if we go with confidence intervals, then it could be, let's say, a 95% confidence interval is equal to plus or minus 1.96 standard deviations. So they're all related to each other, but when you report your answer and when you report your results, just make sure you you let the reader know where those values have come from. So with Python code, very simple. From matplotlib, you can use plt.errorbar, and it gives you your x data point, your y data point to create these blue dots, and then your y error and x error. Over here in this sample graph, I only have y error, but if I did have error in the x measurement, then I'd have a horizontal bar as well. So some additional features for error bars to keep in mind. You can use FMT to determine the format of these blue dots. You can use eColor to represent the color of the bars. You can use the cap size to represent the thickness or the width of these horizontal lines, the caps of each side. And you can use up limbs or low limbs to remove the upper or lower portion of error bars respectively. So up limbs commonly is mistaken for just showing the upper limits. Up limbs actually says we're cutting off and we're removing the upper limit and putting a limit on the top part of the error bar, which means it's going to remove the upper portion of error bars. These upper limit error bars are usually represented by downwards arrows because it shows that there's a limit up top and all your data is going to go down below. For lower limits, it means that you're imposing a lower limit on the error bar, which means that the data points are just simply going to have error bars going up. So something to keep in mind to adjust your error bars with. Additional considerations for error analysis in Python. Here we just want to discuss what happens and how you would plot error bars and where you would get that error from. When you're given a data set, always make sure you first look at the data itself, because maybe there's more information than you need. Maybe you don't have to import as much as you think you do. And most importantly, you have to figure out if the error is already reported or if it's something you have to calculate yourself. Now, if it's something that's already reported, usually you just import the data points and then load your error data into a variable name like y error. And then you can set your error bars or y error bars to that variable when you use the matplotlib function error bar. But in most cases, your error is going to have to be calculated manually. So usually when you report a measurement, you're going to take multiple measurements. And so you're going to have to measure you're going to have to average those measurements and come up with a mean to represent that data point. After you calculate the mean, then you're going to decide whether you want to calculate the standard deviation, the standard error, or a 95% confidence interval, or 99%, whichever one's preferable. And that means that you should have one error measurement or one error value per mean that you have. So at the end of the day, you should have just as many error values as you have measurements, because each measurement should have been taken multiple times. So using your chosen error analysis technique, you then use your error value, whether it's deviation, mean, standard error, or 95% confidence interval, and you use that as your plus and minus error bar values. If in case you do end up with, let's say, different error above or below your data point. So for example, maybe there's more error. Sometimes you have uneven error bars or asymmetric error bars where you have a larger error going forward than going backwards. Those discrepancies can be described using the upper and lower limits so that you can adjust those separately. So as a summary, what should you be able to do after this chapter? You should be able to categorize different types of error as random or systematic. You should be able to know how to calculate measurement uncertainty and apply error propagation rules. Most importantly, you should be able to understand what standard error is and how to calculate it. And at the end of the day, be able to generate error values for repeat measurements and be able to plot them as well.